Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Major Rodney Allen. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We also acknowledge the members of the RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching the ceremony broadcast across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you are able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private William Bernard Nankervis. William Nankervis was born in 1895, the second son of James and Bessie Nankervis of Long Gully, Victoria. His father was a miner who went to work as a manager at the United Ulster Mine. William was educated at the Gravel Hill State School in Bendigo and later found employment as a salesman for Mr. Warren's drapery establishment. William Nankervis enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force in May 1915. After undergoing a period of training in Australia, he left for active overseas service with reinforcements to the 23rd Battalion the following July. In a relatively short period of time, he reached the Gallipoli Peninsula, arriving as the major campaigns of August were dying down, and spent the remaining months of the campaign manning the hard-won Australian positions of Lone Pine. 2 days after Christmas 1915, he embarked for Egypt again. After several months training in the Egyptian desert, Private Nankervis's battalion was sent to France to fight on the Western Front. Within a fortnight, the battalion had been put into the front line in a quiet sector near Armentières in order to get experience of trench warfare conditions. However, this did little to prepare the men for their first major operation near the French village of Pozières in later July 1916. On the 29th of July 1916, the 2nd Australian Division attacked two strongly held German trenches to the northeast of Pozières, known as the OG lines. Held up by swathes of uncut barbed wire, the attack failed with heavy casualties. During the operation, the 23rd Battalion manned the left flank, attempting to advance a short way to the north, but were unsuccessful. After more than a week of preparations, the attack against the OG lines was renewed, with the 23rd Battalion now taking part directly attacking the German trenches. The attack began at 9:15 p.m. on the 4th of August, and the German positions were successfully captured. But the operation to capture the OG lines was costly to the men of the 2nd Australian Division. In the midst of the battlefield, a lieutenant from Nankervis' 23rd Battalion described what he saw. "I rode from the battlefield of the Great Push, with thousands of shells passing in a tornado overhead and thousands of unburied dead around me. The horrors one sees and the never-ending shock of the shells is more than can be borne. We are lousy, stinking, ragged, unshaven, sleepless." When the 23rd Battalion was relieved on the 7th of August, half of its strength was wounded, killed or missing. One of those who did not return was William Nankervis. It would take some time for military authorities to determine his fate. Private Gordon Cullum, who was in the same platoon as Nankervis, stated that for 2 hours Nankervis was in the reserve line trench before the second attack on the OG lines, when Cullum had to leave to go forward with the machine gun section. He never saw him again. It was not until the 17th of December 1917, 16 months after Nankervis went missing, that the inquiry formally determined that Private William Nankervis had been killed in action. It appears that Nankervis was continuing to dig his own jumping off position for the attack when he was hit by an artillery shell and killed. However, with many witnesses killed or hospitalised, this story is based on rumour, rather than being a definitive account of Nankervis's death. What is certain is that his body was never recovered from the battlefield, and today Private William Nankervis is commemorated on the Australian National Memorial at Villas Bretonneux. He was 21 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private William Bernard Nankervis, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. And in the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrubber Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, we'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. We'd like to thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.